Thanks for coming back to hang out with us for part 2 of what we're calling The Miracle from Motown, the rise, fall, and salvation of Smokey Robinson. If you haven't already listened to part 1, please go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and jump into this episode. While Smokey was growing up, he liked to sing. His inspiration and where he got his singing style from was Sarah Vaughan. Vaughan was a famous jazz singer, perhaps best known for her songs Send in the Clowns and Broken Hearted Melody. He loved the way that she phrased and enunciated her words. He thought that they were both soothing and sensuous. However, as much as Smokey loved Sarah, he thought that there was one problem with it. The fact that he patterned himself after a woman made him wonder if it was cool for a dude to be singing like a chick. The doubt in his mind would be erased forever, though, after he went to a concert. Along with his love for Sarah, he also loved the group Billy Ward and the Dominoes. At that time, the Dominoes were riding the wave of their hit song, Have Mercy Baby. Smokey thought that that song was sung by a woman, and he continued to believe that until he got a chance to see the group in person. Once he did, he was shocked to see a man, Clyde McPhatter, was singing lead in a voice that to Smokey had sounded like a woman. Smokey was further shocked to see that the women at the concert were going crazy over the way McPhatter sang. In fact, they were hysterical, crying, screaming. Hey, seeing is believing. Smokey was convinced. Then and there, he changed his mind. There was absolutely no shame in a man singing in a high voice. Besides, as long as the girls liked it, who cared what the guys thought? Smokey also enjoyed listening to Harvey and the Moonglows, the Dells, and also Sonny Till and the Oreos. Another group that was popular at the time was a local group. They were called the Four Ames. At that time, they were the baddest group on the block, again speaking locally. While the name the Four Ames may not mean anything to most of you, how about the name the Four Tops? Because once they grew, once they got better, and once they got older, the Ames became the Four Tops, who of course were one of the greatest groups on the Motown label. Once he was in high school, Smokey formed his own musical group, the Five Chimes. This was essentially the group that would evolve into the Miracles. After a few personnel changes, they consisted of Warren Pete Moore, Emerson Sonny Rogers, Bobby Rogers, who was Sonny's cousin, Ronald White, and of course Smokey. Later, they changed their name to the Matadors, thinking that it sounded more manly. Sonny Rogers was perhaps the most important member of the group, at least to Smokey, because Sonny's sister would become the first real love of Smokey's life. According to Smokey, he flipped the first time he met Claudette, when he was only 14 years old. He thought that she was petite and pretty. He was feeling her brown eyes. She had a small waistline, and he liked rounded hips too. For a whole year, he didn't even approach her. In the meantime, he had other girlfriends. He even lost his virginity. At the same time, he thought Claudette was unapproachable. He felt she was too beautiful, too angelic. The whole time he admired her from afar, he assumed that she was the same age as he was. So imagine his surprise at her birthday party a year later when she told him that she was 18. She was 3 years older than Smokey. The real truth that he didn't know at the time was that she was lying to him. He believed her because she was already graduating from high school, but that was only because she was really smart and had skipped 3 grades in school. Of course, eventually he found out the real truth. The two of them began to date. They went bowling and dancing and ice skating. Soon, the experienced Smokey began to pressure Claudette to have sex with him. She refused, even after he told her he'd have to deal with other girls if she didn't give in to him. Come on, girl, what you sitting on that thing for? You sitting on it, may as well throw it to me. Come on now, quit playing. Saying stuff like that. He didn't really say that. I'm just trying to, give you an idea. The exchange, y'all know how that goes. So, true to his word, Smokey did begin messing around with a couple of girls. But even as he did, he still couldn't get Claudette out of his mind.
While he was playing the field and messing with these different girls, Smokey was still trying to get his look together.
For those of you that don't know what a conch is, first of all, shame on you. If you listen to a video on this channel, you need to be knowing this type of stuff. Should already know, but we'll give you a pass this time. Go ahead and tell you what a conch is. Conchs came about because of a lie that black men used to straighten their hair. Examples of people who wore conchs are James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr., Little Richard, Jackie Wilson, and Chuck Berry. Smokey eventually learned how to do conchs so well that he was able to charge people $2 to let him do theirs. At the same time, despite how things were going with Claudette, things were about to change for the better. Smokey and his group found out that Jackie Wilson and his people were on the lookout for more talent. This was great news. However, at the same time, the group lost one of their members, as Sonny decided to join the army. The group now had no idea how they could audition for Jackie after losing the member. Smokey came up with the idea of adding Claudette to the group. Claudette could sing, and she had been in many of the Matadors' rehearsals. In fact, she had also been singing with the group the Matadorettes, which were the sister group to Smokey's. It only seemed natural that she would take her brother's place. They asked her, Claudette agreed, and she officially joined the group. Prior to their audition, the group normally sang songs that had been played on the radio. However, for this particular audition, they decided to sing 8 new songs that Smokey had written. They thought this would make more of an impression on Jackie and his people. However, it didn't quite work out that way. They auditioned for Nat Tarnopol, Jackie's manager, and Alonzo Tucker, who was Jackie's music man. Additionally, there was some short dude who sat in the corner the whole time. They had no idea who he was. Before they could even finish their audition, Tucker raised his hand to stop them. He told them what they were doing was already being done by the Platters,
and that they should try harder to be more like Mickey and Sylvia. In other words, have one girl sing lead with one of the guys.
On a side note, Mickey and Sylvia were best known for their #1 R&B single, Love is Strange, in 1957. Sylvia would later be known for her hit single, Pillow Talk, in 1973. Perhaps more importantly, she was a driving force in creating the Sugar Hill rap label. Now, back to our story. Basically, Tucker told Smokey's crew to beat it and come back once they made the changes that Tucker suggested. Dejectedly, the group walked away. At the same time, they were approached by that little dude that we referred to earlier that had been sitting in the corner for their audition. He asked about the songs they sang during the auditions. He told them that some of them were good. He then introduced himself as Berry Gordy. At the time, Berry was a songwriter, and he'd written some of Jackie Wilson's biggest hits, like Reet Petite, Lonely Teardrops, and To Be Loved. As a budding songwriter himself, Smokey knew who Gordy was because he'd seen his name before on the songwriter credits. Gordy went on to tell them that despite what Tucker had told them, he thought that their band had something, and he was really interested in their songs. He told Smokey that even though some of his songs rhyme well, just rhyming wasn't enough. Gordy told him that songs were like stories, that they had to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. No one had ever told Smokey that before. Gordy also told him that he liked his voice. Then he told the group that he thought he could help them. While Berry honestly did like what he saw from the group, he had eyes for something else besides their music. He was looking at Claudette. At the same time, Smokey and Claudette were not a couple. As stated earlier, Smokey was sleeping around with different girls at the same time. Claudette was semi-serious with a guy that was away in the army. While they stayed in touch by writing letters, they didn't get to see each other very often. Gordy wasn't the only one that was after Claudette either. After their short meeting with Berry, after their failed audition, the group ran into Jackie Wilson on the way out of the building. Wilson was a notorious womanizer, and he did not miss a chance to hit on Claudette.
How big of a womanizer was Jackie Wilson? Those of you that have been following the channel and watched the 6-part miniseries that we just completed on Jackie Wilson, you know what we're talking about. You know what a womanizer this dude was. But we won't bore the people that have already heard it. For those of you that haven't, Go listen to that, then you'll understand what we mean here. Now, back to the story.
He tried to holler at her, whistling at her and telling her to do a pirouette for him, telling her how fine she was. Claudette was blushing, and she was embarrassed and flattered at the same time. Anyway, back to Berry Gordy. Within 24 hours of meeting her, Berry had already called her and asked her out. Claudette told Smokey about it. "What'd you tell him?" a confused Smokey asked. "No," she said. "Just like that?" "I told him I was your girlfriend," she said. This surprised Smokey, as Claudette had never called herself his girlfriend before. This was a major turning point in their relationship. Later that evening, Smokey promised to leave all them other girls alone and asked Claudette to be his girl. She accepted. Shortly after Smokey and Claudette officially became a couple, Berry Gordy told Smokey that he wanted to manage his group, and Smokey agreed. Now that Smokey and the Matadors had a manager, what would be their first move? What would become their first song came to Smokey in a flash. One day he was watching the American Bandstand on TV. The Silhouettes were singing "Get a Job," which at the time was the #1 song in the country. Then and there, Smokey got the idea to write an answer to "Get a Job." Got a job. Less than a half hour later, he had the song written. He immediately went to Berry's house, telling him that he had just written the group's first hit, and he was right. In November 1957, the group recorded the song with "My Mama Done Told Me" as the B-side to the single. After the studio session, Gordy made an announcement to the group. "You're going to have to change your name. The Matadors sound a little jive." In response, everyone thought of a new name for the group, wrote it on a piece of paper, and put it in a hat. The name they drew out was Miracles. That was Smokey's submission. Thus, the Matadors were now the Miracles. Berry sold "Got a Job" to a company called N Records. In January of 1958, Robinson started college at Highland Park Junior College. He found it hard to focus on his classes, though, as music was always on his mind. One day in class, he had a small radio that he was listening to, hoping to hear "Got a Job" on the radio. He heard news about Russian Sputniks flying around space. He heard hockey scores. Then finally, some music. First, "Rockin' Robin" by Bobby Day. Then "Sweet Little 16" by Chuck Berry. Then, the song he'd been waiting for, "Got a Job," was playing. In the middle of class, Smokey started hollering. Everybody looked at him like he was crazy. Listen, after this, it was obvious to Smokey that college wasn't for him, so he dropped out. This freed him up to follow his heart and pour himself into his music, and he began spending as much time as possible with Gordy, trying to soak up and learn as much as he could from the more experienced man. The two men were fast friends and got along professionally as well. The group recorded the song "Money" with "I Cry" as the B-side. "Got a Job" was a minor hit. After having recorded their second single, they all waited for the profits to pour in. After a while, they received a royalty check in the mail. Yeah! Berry and Smokey eagerly opened the envelope. The check included royalties for the 4 songs they recorded. Calculator goes off, as well as the producer fees, more ching-chinging, publishing income. Oh, this is going to be fat. Writers and artists royalties for all that they were paid, a grand total of $3.19. 319 pennies. 3 George Washingtons, 1 dime, a nickel, and 4 pennies. Berry's response? "This is sure some funky business." The check was so small they didn't even bother cashing it. Instead, Gordy framed it. "Oh, we gonna remember this," Gordy said, "'cause I don't intend to let it happen again." That $3.19 check seemed to light an even bigger fire under an already determined Berry. In response, he went to his family and asked for a loan, which he in turn used to start his own record label. This is how the Motown label came into existence. Initially, it was called Tamla, but eventually it was turned into Motown. We're going to go ahead and stop part 2 right there. We thank all of you for joining us again, to check us out, for listening to us, for watching us. Please continue to like, subscribe, share, comment, repeat. We ain't just got this one video on the site. Go check out the other ones too. They need some love. Don't leave them out there. Check those out. Be prepared to come back for part 3. We're not even close to being done with Mr. Robinson. There's a lot more to check out. Thanks again for patronizing us, and see you soon.